Good afternoon. My name is Paulo Moto, Principal Consultant at the Mobility Practice at Frost& Sullivan. From wherever in the world you're listening, thanks very much for being with us at Intelligent Mobility 2020. In line with our first theme, changing paradigms of connectivity in vehicles, let me walk you briefly through key trends in connected vehicles globally and what we can expect in terms of technologies and services over the next few years. Connectivity in vehicles spans a wide variety of technologies, from a vehicle being tethered to or integrated with smartphones, to vehicles being able to connect to each other and to road and traffic infrastructure. In this session, we will touch briefly on how these trends, in particular 5G connectivity, vehicles as marketplaces, and car as a vehicle of health, and how these are redefining ideas of what vehicles can do and how they will be used in the near future. The COVID-19 pandemic has affected just about every way in which we live, work, and play. In the area of connected vehicles, the global pandemic has accelerated the development of connected features and technologies. Some of the changes we are already seeing are voice and gesture-based interactions being rolled out faster to minimize virus transmission risks from touch interfaces, making emergency assistance standard across more vehicles, and most importantly, building in connectivity in the vehicle to facilitate services like real-time health monitoring and over-the-air updates that require more data and real-time connections. Advancements in vehicle connectivity fundamentally depend on improvements in cellular connectivity technology and infrastructure. While we are all familiar by now with applications served by existing network capabilities, such as e-call, telematics, and in-vehicle infotainment, the next frontier of vehicle features and services, including use cases such as teleoperated driving and contextual services, will require latency and data speeds that go even beyond what today's best commercially available broadband connections can offer. 5G makes these ambitious use cases possible, and as more countries roll out 5G infrastructure, we should gradually see more 5G-enabled, data-intensive connected vehicle use cases. The introduction of 5G, as we've said, will open up vastly more opportunities than ever before to make mobility dramatically more convenient, more useful, and most importantly, much safer. This means more monetizable use cases for OEMs and mobility players that are looking to build the 5G-enabled services of the near future. From next year, in parallel with steady enhancements in both cellular vehicle-to-everything, or C to V2X, and dedicated short-range communication technologies, or DSRC, we should start seeing market-ready applications and features based on using and processing real-time contextual traffic and safety information. Ultimately, in 5 years, we expect commercial use cases for cooperative driving to start emerging. While connected vehicle services still mainly revolve around news, entertainment, and basic traffic applications, we are already seeing vehicles begin addressing user needs beyond infotainment. For example, in-vehicle food orders and shopping via GM Marketplace, and in-car deliveries via Amazon Key. There will likely be different modes in which vehicles become platforms for services and applications. One way, as described, is the vehicle being a mode for making payments and retail transactions for food, fuel, and everyday items. Other ways in which vehicles are becoming platforms are as means to interface with virtual assistants for home automation and tasks, as an access point for deliveries and goods, and as storefronts. At this point, it's important to note that the viability of vehicle-to-everything communications and the emergence of the vehicle as a marketplace are as dependent on edge computing as they are on 5G connectivity. Edge computing is a way of organizing computing such that data storage and processing are done at or close to the end user, where the data is generated. The main benefit of this is that, theoretically, this should minimize the latency inherent in having data processing be done completely remotely at a data server that can be hundreds or thousands of kilometers away. By itself, 5G cannot address this latency issue, but together, edge computing and 5G unlock the full range of data-intensive, real-time connected car applications. At the moment, as we are only starting to see 5G infrastructure and edge computing being rolled out, we have yet to see a high degree of connected vehicle feature maturity outside of North America and Europe. Moving forward, however, the availability of connected services will also be determined by government regulations. This is particularly true for connected services involving safety and security, where there might be country specific legal and political dimensions that need to be considered when introducing these services. Automotive operating systems inside vehicles' electronic control units are the foundation on which connected features and services are built. Currently, QNX leads the global market for automotive OS. But over the next 5 years, we see Android Automotive taking the overall lead as more automakers shift to it, or Linux-based systems. Key to Android Automotive's expected growth over the next few years is its open source nature, allowing it to be fully customizable, and for automakers taking away the need to develop an OS from the ground up. So far, we have talked about how 5G, edge computing, and built-in connectivity are enabling features, functions, and services never before seen in vehicles. The flip side of these technologies is the imperative for cybersecurity to be at the core of designing and manufacturing vehicles. Here, you can see just some of the ways in which connected vehicles, similar to other connected devices, can be compromised by attacks from malicious actors. Since security vulnerabilities are inherent in all connected devices, we anticipate automakers shifting to a security-oriented vehicle design mindset to help raise end-user acceptance and accelerate the adoption of connected services. Similar to the other technologies we have mentioned, blockchain, the peer-to-peer community-maintained record-keeping technology underlying Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, has the potential to add value to connected vehicles. We are still at the infancy of this technology being incorporated into connected vehicle services, but already we are seeing promise in it being used for supply chain integrity and vehicle part certification via initiatives like Toyota's Blockchain Lab and the Renault Group's Extended Compliance End-to-End or EXCEED project. Earlier, we talked about how COVID-19 has made health, wellness, and well-being features in connected vehicles more salient and important to users. Right now, although air filters and purification from OEMs like Geely and Tesla seem to be all there is to in-vehicle health features, very soon we are likely to see interesting partnerships and new business models that enable more health protection capabilities. We can already see, for example, applications emerging in the areas of monitoring blood glucose, heart rate, and driver conditions, among other personal health metrics. Within this decade, it's not hard to imagine vehicles having the capability to do much more for driver and passenger health beyond health sensing. In closing, these trends in technology and services mean that growth opportunities in connected vehicles for mobility players over the next few years will mainly be in two areas. First, the ability to manage and make sense of the rapidly growing amount of data collected by and associated with vehicles. This means building the AI and machine learning tools and systems that can identify what is really critical across different data types and use that to further advance autonomous vehicle development. Second, the ability for a use case, service, or application to function or integrate across a variety of public and private platforms and cloud environments. In principle, this means putting security, redundancy, and scalability at the heart of connected vehicle development. In practice, this means embracing interoperability, open standards, and organization-wide data strategies. This concludes this presentation on connected vehicles. I hope you all found it useful and informative. Thank you very much, and please stick around for the other sessions.
Good evening. My name is Mandali Kalesi. I'm Vice President at TRID. I'm very pleased to be able to join you on this session. Today, I'll be talking about accelerating the adoption of automated mobility through cloud-based tools. So how we can use tools to accelerate the adoption of mobility through our society. So I'd like to start with the evolving vision of automated mobility. So how can we enable that? So Toyota has had a evolving view of what mobility means over the years. And starting in 2016, if you look at the CES at that time, we were talking very much about functionality, about the fuel cell vehicle prototype that we shared. We talked about mapping as a critical functional component for safe driving. And over the next few years, that evolved into augmentation. What I mean by augmentation is, for example, Guardian. So Guardian is a software that resides within the vehicle that is there to support safe driving at any point in time. So it's not necessarily only about the functionality, it was about a software representation that would actually act as a software partner, as a safety partner. ePallet, similarly, we would have a vehicle platform that would support mobility as a service. And so it wasn't necessarily about the function anymore, it was about the service, about the augmentation. And as you know, this year at CES, it was announced that we will build a woven city. So you're kind of transitioning from functionality to services. It's the integration of a whole city. How do people interact with systems, with automated vehicles, and live their lives in a new ecosystem? So this has been the evolution. And one of the strategies that we've built over the last few years and actually decided on here is to build powerful tools. We believe that powerful cloud-based tools for development and testing are actually going to be key to increasing and accelerating the adoption of automated mobility beyond any particular vehicle, beyond any particular functionality. So if you think traditionally about a car has onboard software. In the past, it could be navigation, it could be certain firmware updates that were done at the factory. But actually, in reality, we believe that onboard software is only a small part of the future. So offboard as compared to onboard, we believe that offboard will represent 90% of the software in the future, and onboard will only represent 10%. So actually, most of the work that's been done to date with vehicles actually represents a tenth of the actual universe of software that is there to support safe automated mobility in the future. And some of these are represented here. So you have machine learning, for example, you have mapping, you have developer tools. In addition, we've seen simulation tools become a critical part of the tool chain, deployment tools, and finally, data management, how to manage that data and process it. So there's a variety of domains around this offboard cloud-based tooling set. And today I'd like to talk about the mapping tools in particular and what we're talking about, which is automated mapping platform. So on the right-hand side, you have work that we're doing within TRI-AD related to developer tools, and this is what we call ARENE. But today I'd like to talk about the automated mapping platform, which is looking at the mapping tools that can feed into those developer tools that we can offer to any developer, any mobility developer. I like to call them mobility developers because I believe that mobility developers will be those who build the mobility services of the future. So let's talk about mapping tools. Let's talk about what we're building. One of the things that are very important for a vehicle is to know where they are. And SLAM, which is short for simultaneous location and mapping, is one of the critical components to make sure that a vehicle knows where it is with relation to the vehicles around it, the vehicles with respect to its environment, as well as to know how to plan a safe trip through the built environment and through the vehicle environments. In addition, we're building an IDE, which is short for Integrated Development Environment, for building HD maps. And HD maps traditionally have been very much hand-built, handcrafted to the custom requirements of a particular customer. And I think that can also be done differently. We believe that a cloud-based representation of that is very, very important, both to decrease cost, increase the ability for any developer to use it through standards and through interfaces they're used to, and then to pull it down at any time. We'll come to that in a minute. Another important point is change detection. If you've ever been in a situation where your navigation data is out of date, it's not a very nice situation to be in. However, for a vehicle that has very little understanding of its environment beyond the data you give it and the decisions it's allowed to make, change detection is actually critical for safety. If a vehicle is going to drive with an outdated map, it's actually not going to match what its sensors see. It's going to be confused, meaning either it reduces the level of autonomy or we have an error. So change detection is actually very important to ensure the continued safety of operation for mobility applications. And OTA updates, over-the-air updates, are critical. Connectivity is a given for most people these days with their mobile phones. It should be a given for vehicles, but the implementation of that is non-trivial. So how do we ensure that over-the-air updates can actually happen to make sure the latest information is there at any time? So what we call AMP, the Automated Mapping Platform, what are the advantages of having it? So similarly to the early days of maritime navigation and exploration, the lack of precise maps that are up to date actually hampered our ability to understand the world, navigate, and then make the most of the resources we have available. Currently, less than 1% of the world's roads are represented in HD format. Less than 1%. So what about the 99% of the world and the applications that reside within those applications, within the rest of the world? I think we are hampering our ability to accelerate the adoption. And so the vehicle needs to know where it is, and it needs to operate safely. So we want to change that. What we want to do is two things. One is develop an online HD mapping platform for any mobility developer. Of course, Toyota Group. All the developers and the engineers can use that. But it needs to be a flexible environment. It needs to respond to the needs of developers, not necessarily systems, but the developers building the applications for those systems. You need to be able to build, you need to be able to deploy instantly. No waiting, no customization discussions, no consulting. Just build, decide, deploy. Use APIs, modern infrastructure to get it into your vehicle quickly. Secondly, accuracy and scale are not an or, they are and. You need to have accuracy, you need to have global scale. And satellite imagery for us and Toyota's enormous fleet of vehicles help continuously update our map in real time. Vehicles need high accuracy to make sure that they're making the right decisions. They need global scale so that users can benefit anywhere they are at any time. And the other thing that we're allowing people to do is to deploy their applications and contribute back data into the platform. So that not only with the Toyota data and the satellite imagery data, but also all this other data will come in. And the more people join, the better the platform becomes. So key takeaways from today. How can we accelerate the adoption of automated mobility? We believe it's through the deployment of cloud-based tools, easy to use. So Toyota's had an evolving vision of mobility. We've decided that building powerful cloud-based tools for development and testing are key. And by doing that, one of the early pieces that we need to figure out and we need to make really easy for people is precise maps. And that's something that we plan on doing today. So thank you so much for your attention. I will be available to have some more questions. All questions are welcome. And I look forward to this new future of mobility together. Thank you.
Dear guest, welcome to the Frost & Sullivan Intelligent Mobility Conference 2020. I was invited here to talk about the trends in the commercial vehicle industry until 2025. As a first slide, I would like to discuss with you the trends that we have been knowing for a long time, but are still the top drivers of the commercial trucking industry and the most impactful when it comes to logistics operational efficiency. Those are uptime, safety, and cost. And here for uptime, I want to specifically mention it's not just about vehicles that are ready to run, but it's actually about vehicles running with full load and profitable. In safety, it's not only about safe vehicles anymore, it's about safe environments and making sure that all participants in the traffic flow are safe and underway. And we as vehicle manufacturers will focus very much on ensuring this also in the future. And the most important thing for our customers is the business efficiency of the logistics operation, which will still be in the focus for all time. All of these effects are strongly further intensified by a huge amount of new services and offerings. So which are the right solutions and which should be chosen by our customers to improve those top drivers, which they are facing every day. The high competition in all transportation segments has been ongoing for long, and we see increasing consolidations in many sectors where smaller companies with less digitalization have a hard time in keeping up with the bigger companies, which already use highly sophisticated digital tools to improve their business. Then there's the steadily increasing demand for transportation, which is a very welcoming trend for our customers and the industry, but it's also a challenge because how many new vehicles do you order? How do you efficiently organize them? Should you really buy full mass, or is a year like 2020, where we experienced a big downturn in the Corona crisis, something that you should plan for in the end? There's also the aging workforce and the increasing salary topic, because it's hard to get drivers. It's hard to get people working on logistics on the floor, in the warehouses and all around. And that is something where efficiency in digitalization can actually help our customers in their daily business. On the next slide, I would like to come to the customer pain points and how connectivity can transparently show the customers how they can improve their business. So on the left side, you see a study which Daimler has done in the past on very many vehicles of our telematics fleet. And you see 50% of the times the trucks are actually standing. This is because in most Western countries, there's a one driver, one truck correlation, and the driver has to sleep. Only 35% of the time the trucks are actually driving. And if you take that, then 1/3 of that is empty driving, 1/3 is partially loaded, and only 1/3 is fully loaded. So this is the efficiency we find today in logistics, and this is also true to Japan, to the US, and to Europe. The last rest of the 15% is spent by loading, unloading, and necessary tasks to fulfill the logistics, but waiting is also something that we need to omit. So for us, our customers, this means 4 very important pain points which you can address with connectivity. Unprofitable loads, because it's not only good to have a full load, it's also important to make money with it. It's empty trips, which is the worst case scenario, because we often have a good trip in one direction, but coming back, where do we get the load? Do we have the right customer contacts? Is there enough load available in big cities for us to be both ways profitable? Then there's wasted times, long queues in front of the logistics hub, where customers and truckers have to wait to get unloaded or loaded for the trucks. And then there's low asset utilization, because we often have many vehicles, but maybe in an economic downturn, there's not enough load. All in all, the first thing we need to do with connectivity now and also until 2025 is improve the transparency in our customers' operations and help them understand where are the pain points and give them the digital tools to address these pain points, therefore improve their business. Connectivity, as an example, in my opinion, also increases the vehicle availability by connecting the vehicle, the customer assistance centers of the OEMs or the customer, and the maintenance service with the customer. This is done through a mobile network, customer assistance centers, and other things, and very many things that are already existing in today's logistics, like the GPS locations, ECU data, cameras, tire pressure monitoring, or other features shown here, are important tools in understanding the status of our asset and making sure that we use the trucks as an economic asset to the best. Real-time data becomes increasingly important, and the amount of vehicle is closing to 100% when we talk about newly produced vehicles of all OEMs. But who is the OEM, or who are the customers that have most digital vehicles completely and fully transparently connected to the logistics chain? In addition to track and trace, which has become an industry standard, other benefits include now capacity utilization or even dynamic route optimizations to increase the overall fleet efficiency and allow our customers to dynamically improve their business and not just statically go route by route. This is only enabled if you have connected vehicles, and therefore connectivity will stay at the core of efficiency improvement in the industry. The integration into the business organization systems is really something that our customers want to drive, and we as OEMs and the third-party companies have to help the customers, because full efficiency is only created if we have full transparency along the logistics chain, but then also the full transparency on which tools to use to improve their business aspects. When it comes to key drivers until 2025, I believe connectivity is the base layer for an integrated and efficient logistics flow, and it will also be core for all the new trends like electrification, autonomous driving, and alternative fuels. An autonomous vehicle is in the end a highly sophisticated software vehicle, which also needs to be told where to go. So if you want to do efficient logistics, you need to connect it by connectivity. If you ask me about the most imminent trends, which we have to understand, it's communication V2X, so the seamless connection between multiple stakeholders and systems, which enables revolutionary business models. We have seen this very much in the sharing aspects, which might as well come to commercial trucking. We have seen this in other areas where new business models are created based on transparency, because we know at all times where is the customer demand and where is the load going. Then we have big data. Understanding the data, seeing the data, and making use of the data to find actionable items and how to improve your business will be key for our customers and the logistics industry to improve their business. 5G is a very near-term enabler, which will allow much greater data rates. It will increase the sophistication of data transfer highly, and it will also lower the costs, but increase the availability. So this is another enabler which will help the logistics industry going forward. And I think those topics will also be the most important ones going forward until 2025. And only if we're proficient in these and make our customers proficient in these and help the third parties and ourselves to get to one level, only then we will be fully successful in the logistics environment and provide efficient logistics. Lastly, I believe one big part of digitalization is partnerships. So if the current logistics systems, the OEMs and the customers do not work together, there is always a lack of efficiency. So the role of IT in fleets will be critical in extracting maximal business value, because we need to act on the data we know, we need to act on the transparency. Understanding data analytics and software development will be increasing important skills for us and our customers, but also for third parties in understanding how can I help in a digital environment. Partnerships are the absolute key of making this happen, because no one can develop all functionalities in a digital ecosystem by themselves, but we need to work together as an OEM, as a third party, as a customer, amongst countries, amongst industries, to ensure most efficient logistics. And lastly, the development of specific workflows still needs to be ensured, because each customer is individual and every business is different in logistics. We all know this, and this is an important statement to make. So I believe connectivity at the center helps to increase efficiency between all partners. And in my opinion, from now till 2025, partnership will be key. And I'm very interested to see how the ecosystem of connectivity will develop. We as an OEM will be at the forefront of this transformation with our customers. And I'm really hopeful that we will find a lot of partners on the way. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm looking forward to the rest of the presentations today.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our esteemed set of panelists in our invigorating panel discussions on the future of connectivity. Feel free to post your questions in the chat section for the panelists to address.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this panel on the future of connectivity. Today, we're speaking to a number of panelists, some of whom you just heard from. So feel free to ask questions about the presentations that you just watched. To ask a question, click on the Q&A chat section on the right side of your screen, and don't forget to mention who your question is for. Today, we heard insightful presentations from Peter Vega of Daimler Trucks Asia, Mandali Kalesi of Toyota Research Institute Advanced Development, and Paulo Mutuk of Frost & Sullivan. We're also joined by Raman Vaidyanathan of Tech Mahindra Engineering Services. Great. Let's kick off with a question for all the panelists. Let's hear first from Raman, then Peter, Mandali, and then Paulo. So the question is, at the moment, most connected services in the Asia Pacific are built on American platforms. Do you think this trend will continue, or will APAC-specific platforms emerge? What's your take, Raman?
Thanks, Georgia, for the question. I think it's a good question. To me, China is a unique market, and it remains dominated by local players like Huawei, essentially brings connected services at scale, similar to that of the America-based platforms. But beyond China, we essentially see the American global platform players are essentially dominating the connected service market. But we also do see that players in Japan like NTT, Fujitsu, and Telstra in Australia are building the core infrastructure services required for connectivity platforms. Eventually, I believe Asian market-specific platforms would emerge with or without collaboration from global players. If we really look at someone like Tech Mahindra, we essentially work with many of these global platform providers and build solutions around them. And while the application part is more homegrown in the APAC region, I think the platform part would slowly evolve. And I definitely see that with the countries in India, Singapore, Malaysia, China, Japan, they are developing infrastructure for implementation for the electric vehicles. And this will definitely help to grow autonomous vehicles and connected vehicle platforms as well in time to come. Thank you.
Interesting. Anything to add on to that, Peter?
Yeah, I think I agree to Raman's point about the platforms being very dominant. I do believe that for the next years to come, the trend of the American platforms dominating the market, as you have mentioned it, will stay there because they have already worked very much on expanding their portfolio to the Asian region. So I believe this will continue. I also think that there's a strong movement in the APAC regions towards building own platforms to further enhance existing ones or really make them independent. As Raman just mentioned, already for China, we see this trend sophisticating. If you ask me who are the players which will work mostly on creating those new platforms in the APAC region, it will be players from the internet and mobile network industry. And it's another point where I agree to Raman. I think what is important to mention as an OEM, but also for our customers and third-party providers, is that the key for success for any of these platforms will continue to be the same factors as we see today, mainly being availability of the service, the price of these platforms, the security behind them to protect the data that we are storing and transmitting through those platforms, and the service portfolio linked to them. And while I do believe that openness will definitely be one big factor of this platform, what we are currently seeing is definitely a more close relationship and most of the players trying to keep the customers on their platform.
That's great. Mandali?
Yeah, I'd like to add to what Peter was saying. I think in the current situation, as an OEM, and speaking on behalf of Toyota, in this regard, obviously you do want to have the best services for your customers. However, what we believe, I have a slightly different opinion, is that we believe that cloud tools will actually be the core enabler for mobility in the future. So actually, it's going to be less about like which brand of car. It's going to be more about the application, about the user experience. We've seen that shift happen massively over the last couple of years. In terms of platforms, I think if you get into a Toyota car and you're looking for navigation, you're looking to reflect your mobile phone into the vehicle. You've got CarPlay, you've got Android Auto, and it's there, right? So I think in that sense, do we replicate that functionality? I think that's one discussion. Do we create mobility tools that actually help developers to build on top of a Toyota vehicle, or on top of a Daimler, or on top of any OEM, or on top of any mobility platform? I think we're kind of talking about a different level of platform development, and I think that's something that's completely open, to be quite honest. So I think we need kind of come back to the partnership discussion. We're building on top of platforms, and certain platforms we will build on top of, like CarPlay, etc. Other platforms we'll build ourselves, and we'll open that up to developers so that they can then create that ecosystem. I think we have to break out of this kind of OEM centric thinking, and really start to access and energize developers, like what the IT industry has done very well. And I think it's not something that should remain with the IT industry. It's something that's part of our new digital new normal.
That's great. Anything you want to add to that, Paulo?
Well, perhaps just to sort of recap on the points that were raised by all our panelists, Raman, Peter, Mandali. So I guess number one is that this very OEM-centric paradigm is, of course, going to continue for the next few years, especially the dominance of the American-led platforms, simply because they're already there, so they have an incumbent advantage. And the second thing is that the emergence of Asian-led or Asian-developed platforms, there will be a variety of ways in which the Asian players can do it. Peter has rightfully pointed out the role that non-traditional players will be able to probably participate, starting from applications and services. And I think Mandali made a great point about there are, on the OEM side, while they are dominant right now and the platforms are, of course, traditionally associated with them, they will need to make certain decisions about which to build on and which to do themselves. So those are the areas in which this will probably proceed in the next few years.
Interesting. So that actually comes to another question. Quite a bit of mention has gone on to partnerships. So here's a question. How critical are partnerships to success in connected services? And which applications or solutions do you see as the hotspots for partnership over the next 5 years? Maybe we can start with Peter and then go to Mandali, Raman, and then Paolo.
Yes, I think, as I mentioned in my presentation, partnerships will be absolutely critical because I believe the digital ecosystems are expanding amongst industry. And I believe the type of partnership will be very different to what we have seen in past years. Specifically in the logistics industry, I think we will see a lot of partnerships between the OEMs and the customers, moving their IT systems close together, also including warehouse providers and other third parties, because all that the customer wants is full transparency on the logistics chain and therefore also full transparency on the cost and on the profit side. So they have a new tool on how to optimize their existing business by clearly finding the inefficiency within the logistics chain and therefore addressing it to ultimately deliver a better product to their customers, but also increase their profitability. So I believe with partnerships and digitalization, we as an OEM can go beyond the truck itself and offer a more holistic systems to our customers, also beyond just the point of sales and maintenance, which we have today, and partnership will be absolutely key to that.
That's cool. Thank you, Peter. Mandali?
Yes, I guess if I could add to that, I think partnerships have been something that Toyota has been very active in, and specifically in the startup community as well. We've been working with, and I think a lot of OEMs are, right, looking at the startup community and saying, what are the technologies that are out there that we could collaborate with? And TRID has made a number of these announcements, and I think that's, again, it's a trend, right? We large OEMs don't know everything, and we should be humble and ready to learn. I think that's one type of partnership. OEM partnerships are the other one, looking at more traditional partnerships. But I do agree. I think that the way that partnerships put together are going to look very different for us in the future. Fundamentally, I believe that open platforms are going to be another key enabler. I think we've started with automotive grade Linux. Toyota's spoken about. Toyota's put out a lot of patents in the open space. Now we're talking about AMP with mapping as like an open platform for development. So I think partnerships beyond the kind of one-to-one and more of a kind of one-to-many with the ability for the community to support back and to support the community. I think that's also another new type of partnership that we're really going to be pushing quite hard on our side.
Great, thank you. Raman?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Peter and Mandali said. Definitely for global automakers, we feel strong partnership ecosystem is necessary, mainly from a point of view of implementing it in local regions-based connected services, because it's global. So essentially, you need players to help you in multiple regions, because what I definitely see is there is going to be a change in cloud provider, there's going to be a change in telco provider, there's going to be a change in map provider. So definitely, one of the things definitely could happen is, can there be a universal partner who essentially can help you in all the regions, or do you need to essentially go with local partnerships in order to help enable them? Apart from that, I essentially add to that from a point of view of what I would call as intelligent connectivity, which by this I mean that depending upon the way the connectivity is going to happen, you could essentially choose between different telco partners. That would definitely be one area of applications which I would see from a partnership point of view. The second one will be over-the-air upgrades. Definitely this is going to be key. And more than anything else, compliance with local connectivity requirements is going to be very key in enabling working with partners. There are many things that are common with what Peter and Ali talked about from a point of view of application, but essentially from a point of view of compliance and also ensuring that we're able to operate many of these. So there again, local partnership comes in. So overall, I think partnership is going to be key from a point of view of whether we need to do local implementation or whether we need to go in for a global implementation. Thank you.
Thanks. Anything to add, Paulo?
Maybe just I'd go a bit further and say that at the heart of this current changes in connectivity, like the theme of our panel, changing paradigms in connectivity, really at the heart of it is really partnerships. As Rahman, Peter, and Mandalia pointed out, like not just in terms of building these new services, but in terms of ensuring compliance with local regulations, which is actually a pretty important dimension. So partnerships will be and are increasingly the new way of doing business and developing these applications. And the one-to-many dimension is particularly interesting. And thanks, Mandali, for pointing that out. I think that is a particularly interesting area.
Great. So we have another question. This one comes from Alan Podhurst. This question is for Mandali and Peter. What are your thoughts on TeleOps as an accelerator for deployment of AVs? Maybe we can start with Mandali.
You want me to start first? Okay. So I guess from my point of view, TeleOps is very exciting. I think from the viewpoint of autonomy and safety, I think if we're able to include TeleOps as a kind of in-between step to allow for safe driving in some situations where the vehicle is not able to drive at the autonomy level that's necessary, then that's very exciting. Enabling that is also non-trivial, right? So how can you make sure that you're offering a TeleOps service to your customer within the defined operational domain in a way that the user feels safe, that they're being taken care of, right? And so you have that kind of touches on the user experience. So depending on the application, depending on the car manufacturer, you might actually have a very different user journey. So some cars might actually, want you to be in control. Some cars may want you not to be in control. Then based on that, the TeleOps has to have this almost UX layer, right, to be able to understand what is the right trade-off in order to offer you a smooth ride. And so I think the technology is getting closer to reality. I looked at this a couple of years ago. It was, is this really okay? Because you got people in the car. Maybe if you got packages, it's not so critical. Although I think it's probably the same problem. So I think it's exciting. I think the technology is getting there, but I think the implementation of it is the devil in the detail. How can you easily enable that? That's a problem. That's a business opportunity.
Interesting. Peter?
Yeah, I think Mandali already touched some key points. I think as we're talking about connectivity, again, connectivity will be the base for that. And I think in the presentations today and in my presentation, we talked about 5G. And I think the amount of data which we can send and also the availability of data will be key for any teleops operations because it's latency dependent and it's data amount dependent. So this will definitely be key. I truly do not believe that in the next years we will see live teleops in the sense that you really steer something on a public road, basically doing everything at high speeds, because speed is again relevant, so you should slow down. But I think the new network technologies and all the OEMs and their partners learning about those technologies will again be key. Where I do think there will be a lot of applications is what Mandali just said in critical applications. This might be, for example, turning to the right on a traffic light, or turning to the left, depending on the country that you're living in, as a critical situation. And the teleoperation could help to allow the vehicle to do such situations. But I strongly believe that the vehicle would still need to have all the redundancy and the safety within to actually decide not to do it, even if it's told that if the surroundings do not give it. So I think it's a very interesting application. And again, connectivity will be key to enable such autonomous applications. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. These have been really interesting comments. We are already at 4:40 already. Thank you so much to our panelists for your insight, and thank you to our audience for the questions that you provided. We'll try to compile them all and answer them after the event. Please also answer the poll questions that will appear on the next screen, and don't forget to provide feedback on the panel discussion in the feedback section to your right. Stick around, we have the next theme coming up on new paradigms, new business models. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.